Welcome to The Creative Shift. My name is Dan Blank, author of the book Be the Gateway and founder of WeGrowMedia.com. So today I want to talk about simple ways to connect with others. Now, in the work that I do in working with writers and creators, and this idea of growing your platform and getting attention for your books and your work, often there's this pressure that people can feel to, quote unquote, go viral. And the idea there is often that you are reaching the maximum number of people with the minimum amount of effort. And without question, that's a very useful thing. The problem is that it's often really elusive for people. So I want to talk about some simple, practical ways to engage with those you hope to reach, whether that's a reader or other writers or booksellers, podcasters, librarians, teachers, literary festival organizers, or fill in the blank for whatever your creative field is or who you hope to reach. So not long ago on Facebook, a friend of mine shared a photo of 2 bags of candy. Nothing special about them. It was like York peppermint patties and Hershey's miniatures. And she talked about how she just took a flight, and when she walked on the plane, she gave those bags of candy to the crew that she saw working the flight. And she shared that by the end of the flight, each member of the crew individually thanked her. And she did that because she was following advice that she had heard maybe a year earlier from someone. And the advice was, be the person to make someone else's day. And that was her way of doing it. I often think that we hear advice like that and we complicate it. We think that, and we can extend this as well to the idea of how do I get people's attention for my book or what I do? So we try to emulate one of those viral videos. Or we feel we have to give someone this amazing gift, like a first edition of their favorite book. That will get the attention of that Instagrammer, that sort of thing. Or we think that we have to barter with people, that we're going to create a lead magnet for our newsletter, this download that's so valuable, that we're sort of tricking them into signing up for our newsletter. Or we've got to do a really clever skit on Instagram or a really funny dance on TikTok. But I think that what people want, they want those things, but they also just don't mind things that are much more simpler, things that resonate with them. I'll talk more about the why of that a little later on in this episode. Now, for that candy, my friend probably spent about $10 to $15. And that amount of money was enough to make the day of a hardworking flight crew. It also made my friend feel good, which made me feel good because she has had a very complicated year. And it's been wonderful and inspiring for me to see her thrive as she kind of navigates the unexpected. And in the work that I do with writers, they want people to celebrate their books or to celebrate things like what they write. And I think, again, this always comes back to the idea of showing up as a human being. Again, if you've heard this podcast before, I've got this phrase, human-centered marketing. But this idea of starting with empathy is one of the most powerful tools I think that you have when you consider, how do I share? How do I market? How do I put my work out there? How do I put myself out there? Usually I think we find that it's impossible to stand out, that there are so many newsletters out there already, so many podcasts, so many social media updates, so many online events. And now on top of that, all that we're reading about is AI. And how AI is exponentially going to be creating more content, sometimes more stuff that people want, more funny videos maybe, I don't know, but also just more stuff clogging those channels, more tweets, more podcasts, more newsletters, that's for more books potentially. And it's not hard for people to conclude that, well, there's so many more people, other people who are more established than I am. How on earth can I hope to get people's attention for me and for my writing? And I think the big trick here, the big insight is this. Be someone who truly sees the other person. That is the thing I want to talk about today. And I think that's the thing that really stands out. One, in communication in general, interpersonal communication. It also stands out when we think about marketing or sharing our work. I also think it really applies very well to the current place we are with that fear or the reality of how will AI-generated content change our ability to connect. If you are someone who truly sees the other person, that is something that is always unique at a human level. Because if you're able to do that, you're essentially giving people the one thing that they dream about: to be recognized by someone else, for someone to check in on us, for someone to care about us. And I think in our daily lives, this is more rare than we like to think. A different friend of mine shared this quote on social media not long ago. And the quote was, "Who checked on you today? Exactly. Take care of you." And the way I translated this was that even if you're someone who has a loving family and friendships and relationships, on any given Monday, who reached out and said, "Hey, how you doing? Want to make sure you're okay. Anything you need, anything you want to talk about," that sort of thing. Who checked in on you? And the implication of it is that on any given day, maybe, probably, I don't know, it's different for everyone, but maybe no one did that for you today. Maybe no one did that for you yesterday. Again, it's not that you don't have loving people in your life. It's just these people are often busy with their own stress, their own responsibilities, their own anxiety. And they had that great coffee with you a month ago. They checked in on you then. You had a great conversation. But for you, that might have been 30 days ago, and maybe you're just having a bad week, or you're struggling with something, or you just have anxiety, this normal thing. And again, the implication here is to take care of yourself, because if you don't put your own mental health and physical health first, you can't rely on everyone else to do it for you. And that's not their fault. They're not, seeking ill. They're just busy with their own responsibilities. So what if you're the person who checks in on others, who celebrates others? And I want to give you a really specific example of the power of this. So a whole bunch of years ago, I became aware of, at the time, I just saw it as a Facebook page called Humans of New York. It's become much, much more than that. It's run by this guy named Brandon Stanton. And the short version is that, many years ago, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, he moved to New York City, and he took out his camera, and he would walk around the streets, and he would stop people. And he'd say, "Hey, can I take your photo?" And maybe ask you a couple questions. And what he would do is, when someone finally said yes, and when he got responses or photos he thought were good, he would share a photo of that person and a quote from his conversation with them. And then the next day, he'd go out for another bunch of hours and try to take people's photos and share a quote from them. He would talk about how difficult this was early on. But what is so moving, I'm going to say breathtaking, about what Humans of New York does is that oftentimes what you'll see is a photo of someone who looks like everyone else you pass. It's a construction worker, it's an office worker, it's a parent. It's just someone you would see on the street, someone so, I don't know what this word even means anymore, but normal looking. Just someone like you or me, just a regular person. And then in the text, and usually it's in the middle of the street or on the sidewalk, often it's a serious expression, not always by any stretch. And it's an expression that makes you think there's something here. But that's not what draws you in. It's not what keeps you drawn in. The quotes that he shares are often stories, very personal stories of something this person is going through or has been through. And the honesty of it just stops you in your tracks. It is so real. And this is what Humans of New York has been. It has grown to become 5 books. I think he's got, 17 million Facebook followers, 13 million Instagram followers. He shared well more than 10,000 stories from people in more than 40 different countries. And maybe 4 or 5 years ago, Brandon was interviewed on the Tim Ferriss show. And, Tim is sort of known for trying to figure out, I'll call them life hacks, how to optimize your life. And, Tim is really good at that. He's a really good interviewer. At one point, he was as amazed as I am about what Brandon's able to do with Humans of New York. So he gets to a question where he's asking Brandon, what are the questions that you ask? And the implication here was, Brandon gets these amazing responses from people because he has these secret questions that none of us else has. He knows the right way to phrase a question. Let's figure it out. Let's go inside so that now we can hack this. And Brandon's response was amazing. He said right away, it's not the questions. I have about 3 or 4 entry questions that I use. What's your biggest struggle? How has your life turned out differently than expected? What do you feel most guilty about? And even hearing these right now, I mean, these sound like just such normal questions. Yeah, they kind of go a little deep pretty quick, but there's nothing unusual about them. There's nothing like trick psychology going on here. And what Brandon said is these are just springboards to deeper conversations. He said, how you get to that place, let me start again. How you get to that deep place with a person is absolute presence. It's being 100% there. You're not thinking of the framework of the interview. You're not looking at questions. You're not thinking about your next question. You're not thinking about how this person fits into your idea of them. You are 100% there. You're 100% listening to them. And your questions are 100% coming based on the curiosity of what they're telling you and nothing else. He goes on. People feel alone, period. And that, just him saying that alone, I think is just incredible because it feels like something that we all know in some way, but we never talk about. And he goes on. There's this appreciation of being heard. Even though I don't know this person, this is the first person who's taken a focused and detailed interest in my problems. And the feeling of having somebody focus so intensely, not on the sports teams you like, the music you like, or any of the trivial things that we get asked about on a daily basis, but the real things that you're struggling with. And maybe even not on the top of your mind, but in the back of your mind. He says, being heard like that is such a validating thing. That's why people always share. And he says people he meets on the street, people who are strangers, people who might have been apprehensive of this tall guy with a camera who's coming into their space. They're thankful. They say things to him that they've not only not admitted to other people in their life, they might not even admit it to themselves. And this is why things become so big and probably has many copycats over the years. And elsewhere in that interview, Brandon describes this as a skill that you develop. You don't just know how to do this. You learn over time. And I think that this is just an incredible power that each of us has or can develop to simply see each other, to recognize each other. When you think about what it means to share or to be present or to be online or to engage or to get, it's not about collecting followers or subscribers. It's about showing up as a human being, about validating someone else, about sharing that space and that connection with other people. So let's take this out of theory. Again, going back to this idea of you're a writer, you want to get attention of readers and writers in the space that you're writing in. What are simple, practical ways you can do that to make someone else feel seen and heard as a way of having engagement? And I say this because a lot of people will share online and post online and post online and post online. I say, interesting, do you get any feedback? No. I don't get likes, I don't get any replies. Okay, but I see you have like hundreds, even thousands of followers. What can you tell me about some of these people? I don't know, Dan. I don't know. I don't know who these people are. I have no idea who my audience is. I hear versions of that all the time. So here we are, sharing, getting followers, all the things we think we want, and yet we have no way of talking about who these people are and what's engaging. It's like having a conversation with yourself. Is it any wonder that it feels hollow, that it feels like, why am I doing this? That it feels like, is this what it's all about? Is this what a platform is? So some specific examples of things you can do. And I apologize. I'm not going to apologize if some of these sound silly to you. So the first is, of course, baked goods. Go to your local food store, go to the bakery section, have them print a cake that has a book cover printed on it. They've got this great thing now. You can give them a file. They'll print it on top of the cake. And have it be the book cover of an author whose book that's coming out you're excited about, or an author whose book came out a year ago or 3 years ago that you really like. And then take a photo of that cake, post it to a social network that you know that author's on, and tag them on it. And see what happens. Because it's my belief that every author wants to see their book cover on a cake. The idea here, though, is that by printing something on a cake, a book cover especially, every author talks about this. They wrote this book for years. And now finally, after a year or 3 years or 8 years or 14 years, they saw their book. They got the book in their hand. They saw the book cover. They saw it in a bookstore. That cover means so much to a writer. So printing it on a cake is just a celebratory, tasty item. It's just an example of a way that you get someone's attention where they immediately see, oh my gosh, someone really spent time and effort to see the work that I spent so many years creating. Another example, spend a week celebrating someone's book on social media. And again, this does not have to be a new book. You can say, a year ago, so-and-so released her book, and I want to spend this week celebrating why I love it. And every day of that week, let's just use Instagram as an example, although it can be anywhere. You talk about that book, you talk about the characters or the plot, or you talk about quotes from the author, you talk about aspects of the book that you love. And yeah, you tag them on it or you let them know about it in some other way. You just go above and beyond what it means to feel seen. Because often we think, oh yeah, I liked their tweet. I showed them that I saw them. And what did it get me? Nothing. We do this kind of weird return on investment calculation in our head of, I've done the minimum, the safest thing that hundreds of other people have done, and I don't think I got anything directly back from it. So maybe this isn't working. Maybe I should not be on social media at all. Like we do this weird calculus. Or buy 5 copies of someone's book and then do a giveaway. Or walk into a big bookstore that's carrying that book and like do the walk through the aisles and find the book and then turn it from spine out to face out and like give a thumbs up. Put that video online and tag that author. Or if you don't want to be public about it, which I totally respect and understand, send them a gratitude email or a gratitude DM on social media, just telling them specifically why you love their book. Don't ask them for anything. Just try to make their day. Or share a photo of yourself with the book. I think it's amazing when you see your book out in the wild and some other human being holding it, or it's on their shelf, it's in their life. And maybe you're hearing these things and you're thinking, wait a minute, Dan. I want people to do these things for me. Why are you telling me to do these things for other people? And I want to encourage you to learn by doing. That if you want readers to be celebrating your books in these ways, you have to model that behavior first. I think you've got to learn about that behavior first. A few months back, I wrote a blog post about the 10 plus steps it takes to post a book review online. And this is something I think that writers don't think about. We think it's this easy thing. Oh, everyone, if you bought the book, post a review on Amazon because it really helps. We think that we're asking them to do this simple thing. And it's not simple. It's not simple at all. It's like this 10-step process. It's actually more like a 15-step process. We want you to buy the book, get the book, start reading the book, continue reading the book, finish reading the book, which, by the way, takes hours and hours and hours and hours of someone's time. Cool. Then we want you to do what you probably hated doing when you're in school. We want you to write a book report, but not just a book report. It's got to be really short. It's got to be a 1-paragraph book report, which, by the way, is really difficult. Then we want you to give a nice headline for that book report, something that nobody likes doing. Then we want you to figure out how to post it. Not as easy as you'd think. Oh, you go to Amazon, you scroll down, you click the write a view thing, then there's a star system. All these figure out things. Then we want you to be public about it. And not just public on like your own Facebook profile with your 200 friends. Public on Amazon, where you might be apprehensive. You might not know, are they going to put my full name or just my first name? You might not know. Can I take it down after? You might not know. To be public in a system that you don't know how to control. All of these things are happening when you say post a review. It's not just there's a lot of steps. It's not just that they might really get tripped up thinking, oh, I would write, I've done this a lot, where I write a review, I'll keep it short, but then I'm like, oh, well, the author sees this and it's not good enough for them. Or shouldn't it be longer? Or we do the thing that a lot of people do, which is we don't just say, yeah, it was a good book, I'll give it a 5-star review, I'll be positive. We say, well, if I give it a 5-star review, are people going to think that I think this is the best book that has ever been written? And we start doing that weird thing in our head of like, because that would be very foolish, right? I should give it a 4-star review, which is very, very good. Not the best, but very good. We start playing with this weird rating things in our head. We complicate it, which if you want to do that, like you're welcome to do it. But what I'm saying is that people get tripped up by these things. So again, with this idea of all the ideas I've shared of simple ways to see others and then hoping to show people how to be seen, it's not easy to do that. And I don't want you to think of this work as a transaction, as something that you're doing for the reason of having a specific goal. And you can look around at other people who generally do this. I follow a lot of people on social media, a lot of authors, and I look at people who share a lot, and to me, it looks like they're sharing generously. They're trying to really share from their heart and see other people. So these might be people like Debbie Ridpath-Owe, Janae Marks, Jasmine Darznik, Andrea Bartz, Julian Winters, Jessica Strasser, Jarrett Lerner, Nikki Grimes, Marilee Patel, Marcia Lynn Paul, Colby Sharp, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And the people who I look at and say, wow, they're just so great. You might find other people that resonate with you. So I started this episode talking about the 2 bags of candy that my friend shared a photo of. And I was really thinking about her process for doing this. I was imagining her walking through an airport, as most people do, which is kind of stressed out. You're trying to make a plane, you're carrying stuff, you don't want to do anything wrong, all this sort of stuff. And yet she's thinking, you know what? Let me make someone's day. Let me buy some candy to give out to the crew. What are the objections that are popping into her head as she's doing this? So I was brainstorming this. These are things I can see myself thinking if I was in her position. Well, candy's such a common commodity. Why would they appreciate that? You know, if I really want to show them my appreciation, I would buy them cupcakes. oh gosh, those cupcakes are $4 to $5 each. I don't have enough money to buy those for the whole crew. So we say, oh, I'll buy them candy, and then we instantly say, oh, who cares about candy? Like they're not gonna care about that. It's not special enough, so I won't do it at all. Or you might think, or I might think, oh, I'll bet they already have snacks on the plane. Like they don't even need this. I'm giving them something they don't even need. They're not going to appreciate it because they don't need it. Or what if they think I'm weird? Because if there's 100 people getting on the plane and I'm person number 42, I'm the only one giving them something. And that makes me stand out, and that potentially makes me the weirdo. Because I can imagine if they're greeting 100 people, that I'm the one breaking the churn. We're trying to get people on the plane, and here I am stopping, I'm handing them something. I'm the weirdo in that, right? Won't they think that? Again, another reason to say I won't do it. Or all these people want to get on the plane, then they want to get off the plane. I'm the one holding them up. What if the people around me are kind of miffed at me because they just want to get their seat? They're worried about not having overhead storage. And here I am, even if it's just for a few seconds, 7 seconds, when they're trying to get on that plane, like the 5 people behind me might be cursing me because I've paused for some reason. I'm causing a problem, causing a delay for them, which we know when we travel, it's the last thing that we want is delay. I'd better not give them the candy. I don't want to make anyone else's day worse. Or we can think, you can tell I overthink everything, right? I can imagine that she's already stressed out traveling because travel is pretty stressful. So maybe she would think, you know what, instead of getting online and buying candy, let me try to relax a little bit. Let me listen to a podcast in the corner and relax before I travel instead of giving myself one more thing to do in a day where I'm already doing 1,000 things. Or I can see someone thinking, you know what? This plane ticket was more than I want to spend, and they gave me these extra fees that I think are not worthwhile. Why am I spending more of my money on this airline? Why am I doing that? Again, another reason not to do it. Or saying, you know what, the candy's a good idea, but I should write them a thank you card. I can't even buy one because it's all the way down there. I don't have time to get one. I better not give them the candy at all. Or you can kind of reverse it. This whole idea of thinking, oh my gosh, what if I give them the candy, but then they think I'm doing that because I expect preferential treatment, which I totally don't. I better not do it because I don't want them to think that I want something in return. To me, these are the mind games that we play. And they come from a good place. We want to protect ourselves and protect others, but they stop us from doing simple things to connect with other people. And these are the same kinds of things that I think writers think about all the time when they consider how to share. Oh, should I do this on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or a newsletter or a Zoom or a podcast or whatever? And we say, no, I better not do it because whatever. I want you to instead start with empathy and not think about return on investment. And to, as my friend did, inspired this whole episode, this idea of thinking, what would make someone's day? And just start there. As always, if you have feedback or questions about the podcast, you can reach me, dan@wegrowmedia.com. You can find me and my weekly newsletter at wegrowmedia.com, or I'm on social media at Dan Blank. Thank you so much for listening until the end.